Before we dive into this story, tell me where you're watching from in the comments below. If you like what you hear, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories like this. Wishing you a beautiful day. Now, sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. The grand ballroom of the Ritz-Carlton in Chicago was breathtaking. Crystal chandeliers hung from the high ceiling, casting sparkling light across the room. White lilies filled tall vases, their delicate petals glowing softly in the warm glow of candlelight. The polished marble floor reflected the shimmer of the lights, making the whole space feel like a dream. Rows of velvet chairs were filled with Chicago's elite, business tycoons, socialites, and a few curious reporters. The air buzzed with quiet conversations and the faint clink of champagne glasses. At the edge of the room stood Maya Collins, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and nerves. She was dressed in a simple but elegant ivory gown, the lace delicate against her skin. Her dark hair was pinned back loosely, a few curls framing her face. Maya wasn't from this world of wealth and power. She grew up in a small apartment on the south side of Chicago, raised by her hardworking mother who ran a local bakery. Photography was her passion, her escape, and her dream. Today, she was about to marry Evan Radcliffe, the man she believed was her ticket to a new life. A fairy tale she'd only dared to imagine. Evan was everything Maya had hoped for. Tall, with sandy blonde hair and a smile that could light up a room, he was the heir to the Radcliffe fortune. He had swept her off her feet with charm and promises of a future filled with love and adventure. To Maya, Evan was the perfect man, the one who saw her for who she was and loved her anyway. But beneath the surface, there were whispers, rumors about Evan's past, his reputation as a playboy, and the coldness of his family, especially his mother, Vivian Radcliffe. Vivian sat in the front row, her silver hair perfectly styled, her expression unreadable. She was the queen of the Radcliffe empire, a woman who controlled everything with an iron fist. Her eyes flicked toward Maya now and then, sharp and calculating. Maya felt the weight of those looks, the silent judgment that reminded her she was an outsider in this world of privilege. Beside Maya stood Tina Morales, her best friend since college. Tina was a fierce, no-nonsense journalist who had always been protective of Maya. She had warned her about Evan more than once. "He's charming, sure," Tina had said, "but don't let that blind you. The Radcliffes don't do things by accident. Watch your back." Maya had smiled and nodded, but deep down, she hoped Tina was wrong. The music began, a soft, swelling melody from the string quartet tucked in the corner. Maya took a deep breath, smoothing the front of her dress. It was time. She glanced once more at the crowd, then stepped forward. Her satin slippers whispered against the marble as she walked down the aisle, her eyes fixed on the altar. But when she reached the end, the space where Evan should have been waiting was empty. The music faltered, then stopped. A hush fell over the room. The officiant stood awkwardly, hands clasped, glancing nervously at the doors. Whispers began to ripple through the crowd like a wave. Maya's heart sank. She looked around, searching for Evan's face, but he was nowhere to be found. Confusion and shock spread through the guests. Some gasped, others exchanged worried glances. Tina was already on her feet, weaving through the rows toward Maya, her face pale but determined. Maya's fingers trembled as she gripped the bouquet tighter, the dream she'd held on to slipping away with every passing second. The grand ballroom, once filled with hope and promise, now felt cold and empty. And Maya stood there, alone at the altar, wondering what had just happened, and what her future held now. Maya's hands shook as she unfolded the small, crumpled note that had been pressed into her palm by a trembling usher. The words were simple, but they hit her like a punch to the chest. "I can't do this." Evan's handwriting was unmistakable, but the message was clear. He wasn't coming. He had left her standing at the altar. Her breath caught, and for a moment, the world seemed to stop. The music had died. The guests were frozen, and all Maya could hear was the pounding of her own heart. The note slipped from her fingers and fluttered to the floor like a fallen leaf. Around her, the crowd erupted into whispers and gasps. Cameras flashed relentlessly, capturing every stunned expression, every tear that welled in Maya's eyes. Reporters scribbled furiously, their pens racing to keep up with the unfolding scandal. The whispers grew louder, turning into murmurs of disbelief and judgment. Maya's mind spun. How could he do this? How could Evan, the man who had promised her the world, just walk away? The humiliation was unbearable. She felt exposed, like everyone was watching her fall apart. But she forced herself to stand tall, to breathe, to not let the tears fall. Not here, not now. Her thoughts drifted to her father, who had passed away years ago, but whose voice still echoed in her heart. "You're stronger than you know, Maya. No matter what happens, hold your head high." She clung to those words like a lifeline. Suddenly, Tina was at her side, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "You're not alone," Tina whispered fiercely. "We'll get through this. You're stronger than this moment." Maya nodded, grateful for her friend's steady presence. At the edge of the room, almost unnoticed, stood Julian Radcliffe. Tall and imposing, with dark hair slicked back and sharp gray eyes, he watched the chaos unfold with a calm that unsettled everyone. Julian was Evan's older brother, the CEO of Radcliffe Industries, known for his cold, calculating nature. He rarely spoke at family events, preferring to stay in the background. But now, Julian stepped forward. His voice cut through the murmurs like a knife. "There will be a wedding today," he declared, his tone low but commanding. The room fell silent, all eyes turning to him. He looked directly at Maya, his expression unreadable, but his eyes softening just a little. "If Evan isn't man enough to stand here, I will." The crowd gasped. Cameras flashed even more furiously. Whispers turned to shocked silence. Vivian Radcliffe, seated in the front row, rose to her feet, her face pale with fury. "Julian, what are you doing?" she hissed, her voice sharp and cold. But Julian ignored her, raising a hand to silence the room. "This is happening. Now." Maya's heart raced. She barely knew Julian, just a few brief encounters at family dinners and business events. He was the opposite of Evan, serious, distant, and powerful. And now, he was offering to marry her, right here, in front of everyone. The stunned silence stretched on, broken only by the soft rustle of Maya's dress as she took a hesitant step forward. The dream she had held on to was shattered, but a new, uncertain path was opening before her. Vivian's lips pressed into a thin line, her eyes blazing with disapproval. The guests exchanged uneasy glances, caught between shock and curiosity. The grand ballroom, once filled with hope, was now a stage for a drama no one could have predicted. And Maya, standing at the center of it all, felt the weight of 1,000 eyes on her. But also, for the first time since the day began, a flicker of something else. Hope. The room was still heavy with shock as the ceremony moved forward. Julian Radcliffe stood beside Maya at the altar, his expression unreadable but his posture firm. The string quartet resumed the music, hesitant at first, then steady as the guests watched in stunned silence. Maya's heart was a whirlwind of emotions, confusion tangled with fear, and beneath it all, a small flicker of hope. She had come to the Ritz-Carlton dreaming of a perfect wedding with Evan, but now she was here, standing beside his older brother, a man she barely knew. The thought was overwhelming, but she told herself to stay strong. Julian's voice was calm and steady as he recited his vows. There was no grand romantic flourish, no flowery promises, just a quiet, firm commitment. "I promise to stand by you," he said, "to protect you from harm, and to face whatever comes with honesty and strength." His words were simple, but they carried weight. When it was Maya's turn, her voice trembled slightly, but she spoke clearly. "I promise to be true to myself and to you, to find strength in the hard times, and to build something real." The words felt strange coming from her, but also freeing. The officiant pronounced them husband and wife. Applause broke out, some genuine, some hesitant. Cameras flashed non-stop, capturing every moment. Reporters whispered excitedly, already piecing together the story that would dominate headlines for weeks. As the ceremony ended, Maya was led away from the ballroom, her mind racing. The media frenzy outside was relentless. Reporters shouted questions, flashes from cameras blinded her, and the whispers of scandal followed her like a shadow. She felt exposed, vulnerable, and unsure of what came next. Julian was quiet beside her, his presence steady but distant. When they reached the waiting car, he finally spoke. "You don't have to do anything you're not ready for," he said. "We can take this one step at a time. No pressure." Maya nodded, grateful for the offer, but still unsure. The idea of living with Julian, a man she barely knew, was daunting. What did he really want? Was this about family reputation? Or was there something more? The Radcliffe mansion was a world away from Maya's South Side apartment. The towering glass walls, polished marble floors, and sleek modern furniture felt cold and unfamiliar. She wandered through the vast rooms, feeling like an intruder in a place built for power and control. Julian showed her to a spacious guest suite, its walls adorned with abstract art and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline. "This is yours," he said simply. "Take your time. We'll figure out the rest." That night, Maya lay awake, the weight of the day pressing down on her. Doubts gnawed at her, about Julian's motives, about her future, about whether she could ever belong in this world. But beneath the fear, a small spark of hope remained. Maybe, just maybe, this unexpected marriage could be the start of something real. As the city lights twinkled outside her window, Maya closed her eyes and whispered a silent promise to herself, to be strong, to find her way, and to never lose sight of who she was. The Radcliffe estate was enormous, too big, too cold, and too quiet. Maya wandered through the endless hallways and vast rooms, feeling small and out of place. The polished marble floors echoed under her feet, and the sleek modern furniture looked more like art than something to live with. It was beautiful, but it didn't feel like home. Days passed, and Maya tried to settle into this new life. Julian kept his distance, busy with meetings and company matters, but every now and then she noticed small, thoughtful gestures. One morning, she found a tin of chamomile tea on the kitchen counter, her favorite. Another day, a leather-bound book of photography lay on her desk, its pages filled with inspiring images. And in a quiet corner of the mansion, Julian had arranged a small art space for her, with an easel, paints, and brushes. These acts were kind, but they didn't erase the feeling that she was still a stranger here. Maya clung to her camera, taking photos of the estate's gardens and the city skyline, trying to hold on to the part of herself that felt real and free. Photography was her passion, her way of expressing who she was beyond the Radcliffe name and the unexpected marriage. But the memories of Evan's betrayal haunted her. She remembered the note, the empty altar, the whispers of the guests, and she couldn't shake the growing mistrust she felt toward the Radcliffe family. Vivian's cold stares, the hushed conversations she overheard, the way the family seemed to move like a well-oiled machine. Everything felt calculated, like she was a piece in a game she didn't understand. Tina was a constant lifeline. She called and texted often, reminding Maya to stay strong and watch her back. "The Radcliffes have secrets," Tina warned. "You're smart to be careful. Don't let them swallow you whole." One evening, Maya found Julian in the library, a rare sight. He looked tired, his sharp features softened by the dim light. For a moment, he seemed less like the cold CEO and more like a man carrying a heavy burden. "I wasn't always like this," Julian said quietly when Maya approached. "I used to trust people. I thought love was simple. But I was wrong. Someone I cared about betrayed me. And since then, I've kept my distance. It's safer that way." Maya listened, surprised by his vulnerability. It was the first crack in the wall he'd built around himself. Slowly, cautiously, they began to understand each other. Small conversations over coffee, shared silences in the garden, moments when Julian's guard slipped and Maya saw the man beneath the suit. It wasn't easy. There were still doubts, fears, and unspoken questions, but for the first time since the wedding, Maya felt a flicker of connection. Life in the mansion was far from perfect, but it was becoming something new, a place where two broken people might find a way forward, together. One late evening, Maya was walking down a quiet hallway when she heard voices coming from the study. She paused, recognizing the sharp tones of Julian and Vivian arguing. Curiosity and unease pulled her closer, and she pressed herself against the doorframe, listening. "You can't just force this marriage on her," Vivian hissed, her voice cold and sharp. "This was a business move, Julian, a way to save the company after Evan's mess. She's a pawn in our game." Julian's voice was low but fierce. "Maya is not a pawn. She's stronger than any of us gave her credit for. Evan was the one who was weak. He had a secret lover and never wanted this engagement. We pressured him to keep the company afloat." Maya's heart sank. The truth hit her like a wave. She had been used, a tool in a family's desperate plan to protect their empire. The man she loved, or thought she did, had never truly wanted her. She felt a mix of heartbreak and anger burning inside her. Julian's voice softened, but his words were firm. "She deserves better than Evan ever gave her. I married her to protect her, not to trap her." The next morning, the media storm hit full force. Headlines screamed about the scandal. Heiress or gold digger? Maya Collins's sudden marriage to billionaire raises eyebrows, and Radcliffe family drama. Was Maya just a pawn in a corporate game? Social media exploded with rumors and harsh judgments. Some called her a schemer, others a desperate woman climbing the social ladder. Maya felt the weight of the world pressing down on her. The whispers followed her everywhere, even to her photography studio. Some clients canceled appointments, and a few friends distanced themselves, unsure what to believe. But Maya refused to be broken. She remembered her father's words about strength and dignity. She decided to fight back, not with anger, but with truth and resilience. She would reclaim her story on her own terms. Julian stood quietly by her side through it all. Behind closed doors, he shielded her from the worst of the family's politics and the media's attacks. His support was steady and unwavering. a silent promise that she was not alone. Together, they faced the storm, determined to prove that love and integrity could survive even the darkest secrets and loudest scandals. After the whirlwind of the wedding and the storm of scandal, Maya found herself craving something real, something that reminded her who she was before the Radcliffe name and the unexpected marriage. So, she decided to start a free photography workshop for kids in her old neighborhood on Chicago's South Side. Every Saturday morning, Maya drove 2 hours from the mansion to a small community center tucked between brick buildings and busy streets. The room was simple: peeling paint, worn tables, and a few old cameras, but it was alive with energy. Kids from all over the neighborhood came, eager to learn how to capture the world through a lens. Maya loved seeing their faces light up when they took their first photo, or learned to focus the camera. Teaching reminded her of her own dreams and struggles, and it gave her a sense of purpose beyond the Radcliffe drama. What Maya didn't know was that Julian was quietly supporting the workshop behind the scenes. He had arranged for the community center's rent to be paid for a full year, and bought new cameras and supplies for the kids. But he kept it a secret, not wanting Maya to feel like she owed him anything. Occasionally, Julian would show up at the workshop, blending into the background. He wasn't used to noisy rooms filled with laughter and chatter, but he watched Maya with a soft smile, admiring her passion and dedication. His visits were brief at first, but over time, Maya began to notice him more, not just as the distant husband, but as someone who cared. Back at the mansion, they found small ways to connect. They spent afternoons in the neglected courtyard, pulling weeds and planting flowers. Maya laughed when Julian accidentally sprayed himself with the garden hose, and for a moment, the cold walls of the estate felt a little warmer. Their late-night talks became a quiet ritual. Sitting on the porch with mugs of hot cocoa, they shared stories. Maya about her childhood and dreams, Julian about his fears and past heartbreaks. The distance between them slowly shrank. Maya began to realize that Julian's feelings were genuine. He wasn't just protecting her out of duty or family pressure. He wanted to be with her. But hope was tangled with fear. Could she trust him? Could she believe in a future where love wasn't just a business deal or a shield against scandal? Every smile, every shared moment chipped away at her doubts. Yet, the past still whispered warnings in her mind. She was learning to open her heart again, one cautious step at a time. It was a bright Saturday morning at the community center, and Maya was busy helping a group of kids adjust their camera settings. The room buzzed with excitement as the children laughed and shared their photos. Suddenly, the door swung open, and a familiar figure stepped inside. Evan Radcliffe. His face was tight with bitterness, eyes cold and hard. The room fell silent as the kids looked up, sensing the tension. Maya's heart tightened, but she stood her ground. "What are you doing here, Evan?" she asked, her voice steady despite the shock. Evan's gaze swept over the kids and then locked onto Maya. "I'm here to set the record straight," he said, voice sharp. "You used me. You planned this whole thing to climb the social ladder by marrying Julian. You're nothing but a schemer." Maya's jaw clenched. "You're wrong," she said firmly. "I never used you. You made your choices. I'm not going to let you drag me back into your lies." Evan sneered. "People will believe me. You think they'll believe a nobody from the South Side over a Radcliffe?" The kids watched quietly, some clutching their cameras, unsure what to do. Maya took a deep breath, refusing to show fear. "I'm here for these kids, and I won't let your bitterness ruin that." Word of Evan's confrontation spread quickly. The media pounced, and scandalous headlines flooded newspapers and social media. Radcliffe drama explodes again. Maya Collins accused of manipulation, and bitter ex returns to stir trouble. Online trolls attacked Maya relentlessly, questioning her character and her motives. The pressure was overwhelming. Some parents pulled their children from the workshop, worried about the negative attention. Maya felt the sting of public judgment, the weight of whispers and sideways glances, but she refused to give up on the kids or herself. Julian saw the toll it was taking. Without hesitation, he called a press conference at Radcliffe Industries headquarters. Cameras filled the room as he stepped up to the podium, his expression calm but resolute. "I'm here to address the false accusations against my wife, Maya Collins," Julian began. "Evan Radcliffe's claims are lies, born from bitterness and selfishness. Maya is not a schemer. She is a woman of integrity, strength, and heart. I stand by her, and we will not be intimidated by these attacks." The room buzzed with murmurs, but Julian's words carried weight. He revealed evidence of Evan's secret lover and his unwillingness to marry Maya, exposing the truth behind the family's earlier decisions. Back at the Radcliffe estate, Vivian's icy demeanor softened, just enough for the world to notice. She publicly distanced herself from Evan, signaling a fracture in the family. The board of Radcliffe Industries backed Julian, and Evan's reputation began to crumble. For Maya, the battle was far from over, but Julian's support gave her strength. Together, they faced the storm, determined to protect their future and the community Maya had fought so hard to build. The day of the press conference arrived with a heavy sense of anticipation. The grand conference room at Radcliffe Industries headquarters was packed with reporters, cameras, and flashing lights. The air buzzed with questions and whispers, everyone eager to hear what Julian Radcliffe had to say. Julian stepped up to the podium, his black suit sharp and his face calm but determined. He looked out over the crowd, his gray eyes steady and unwavering. "I am here today to address the rumors and lies that have been spread about my wife, Maya Collins," he began, his voice clear and strong. "These accusations are false and hurtful. Maya is not the schemer some have tried to paint her as. She is a woman of integrity, strength, and kindness." The room fell silent, hanging on his every word. "On our wedding day, when my brother Evan abandoned Maya at the altar, I saw a woman who was brave enough to stand tall in the face of humiliation. I married her not out of obligation, but because I believe she deserves love, respect, and happiness." Julian's words carried weight, cutting through the noise of gossip and scandal. He paused, then added, "I stand by Maya, not just as her husband, but as her partner. Together, we will face whatever challenges come our way." As Julian finished, the crowd erupted into a mix of applause and murmurs. Cameras flashed wildly, capturing the moment. Backstage, Maya's heart pounded. Tina squeezed her hand, whispering, "This is your moment." Taking a deep breath, Maya stepped forward to the microphone. Her voice trembled at first, but grew stronger with every word. "I want to thank Julian for standing by me," she said, eyes shining with emotion. "The past few months have been difficult, but I refuse to let lies define me. I am proud of who I am, a photographer, a teacher, and someone who believes in second chances." She looked out at the crowd, meeting the eyes of reporters and cameras alike. "I'm here to tell the truth. I didn't use anyone. I didn't scheme. I am simply trying to build a life filled with love and purpose." The room was quiet, the sincerity in her voice touching many hearts. Slowly, the atmosphere shifted. Sympathy for Maya grew, and the harsh judgments began to soften. Julian stepped back onto the stage, holding a small velvet box. He opened it to reveal a delicate silver ring, engraved with tiny daisies, the symbol of the moments they had shared, from chamomile tea to gardening in the courtyard. "Maya," he said, kneeling before her, "this ring is a promise, not just of marriage, but of love that is real and true. Will you continue this journey with me?" Tears welled in Maya's eyes as she nodded, slipping the ring onto her finger. The crowd erupted into applause, some standing, others wiping away tears. That day marked the beginning of a new chapter for Maya and Julian. United against the odds, they faced the world together, not as a scandal, but as a story of love, resilience, and hope. As they left the stage hand in hand, Maya felt a warmth she hadn't known in months. For the first time, she believed in the future they could build, together. The day of Maya and Julian's wedding was unlike anything either of them had ever imagined. Gone was the grand ballroom, the flashing cameras, and the heavy weight of scandal. Instead, the ceremony took place in the mansion's garden, a quiet, sunlit space filled with blooming flowers and the gentle hum of summer bees. Only close friends, family, and the children from Maya's photography workshop were invited. The atmosphere was warm and simple, a sharp contrast to the opulence and tension of their first wedding day. White ribbons fluttered in the breeze, wooden chairs were arranged in a circle, and a small wooden arch was decorated with wildflowers and greenery. Maya wore a flowing, light dress that caught the sunlight as she walked barefoot on the soft grass. Her hair was loose, with a few daisies tucked behind her ear. Julian stood waiting, dressed in a light gray suit, his usual sharpness softened by the relaxed setting. As Maya approached, their eyes met, and the years of pain, struggle, and hope seemed to melt away. The vows they exchanged were heartfelt and simple, promises to support, to listen, and to grow together. After the ceremony, the garden filled with laughter and music. The children ran around, their faces bright with joy, clutching drawings and photographs they had made as gifts. Friends shared stories, and the air was thick with the scent of fresh flowers and homemade food from a local bakery. Maya's work with the community continued to be her passion. She expanded her photography classes, dreaming of opening a gallery to showcase local artists who, like her, had stories to tell. Julian supported her every step of the way, balancing his demanding business life with quiet moments spent helping her plan and organize. Their circle of friends grew, blending the worlds they came from. The children from the workshop became like family, their laughter filling the mansion's once empty halls. Julian found joy in these simple moments, far from boardrooms and business deals. That evening, as the sun set and fairy lights twinkled overhead, Maya and Julian sat together, hands entwined. They had faced storms, secrets, and doubts, but here, surrounded by love and resilience, they found belonging. This was their new beginning, a life built not on wealth or status, but on trust, hope, and the promise of a future they would create together. It was a peaceful afternoon at the community center, where Maya and Julian sat among a group of children, their hands covered in bright paint. Together, they were working on a large mural, a colorful scene filled with houses, trees, and a shining sun. The mural was more than just art. It was a symbol of hope, resilience, and new beginnings. Maya smiled as she watched the children laugh and share their ideas. This was the life she had fought for, a life where she could be herself, surrounded by people who mattered. Julian, sitting beside her, gently wiped a streak of blue paint from his cheek, his eyes warm and full of quiet joy. As the afternoon light softened, Maya thought back on everything they had been through. The betrayal at the altar, the harsh whispers of scandal, the long days of doubt and fear. But most of all, she remembered the moments of trust, the slow building of a partnership that had grown stronger with every challenge. She no longer saw herself as just the woman who married into wealth. She was Maya Collins, a photographer, a teacher, a fighter. Her identity was rooted in her passion, her community, and the love she and Julian had built together. Julian reached for her hand, his grip steady and sure. "I promise to protect what we have," he said softly. "Not just from the world, but from anything that might come between us. We'll build our future together, on our own terms." Maya squeezed his hand, feeling the strength of his words. They sat in comfortable silence, watching as the sun dipped below the Chicago skyline, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. Hand in hand, they faced the horizon, ready for whatever came next, knowing that their love was more than wealth or status. It was real, it was theirs, and it was enough.
I hope you enjoyed this thrilling journey. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate this story? Let me know in the comments below. Your feedback inspires more epic tales.